It's the CJ and Joy Show. And when it comes to our go-to experts on kids, we're learning to get to know more and more Josh and Christi Straub. They are authors of an awesome book, by the way, which we'll get you a link here in just a bit. It's called What Am I Feeling? It's a children's book. You should check that out. Josh is a doctor, a child psychologist. Christi, his wife, they work together on a variety of different projects. First off, hey, thanks for being here and hanging out with us, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
This is fun.
We're all quarantining together.
Yep.
That's right.
What are you? How old are you?
I'm so alone, you know?
Yeah. How old are your kids again?
We have 7 and 5, and one about to make a debut.
She's pregnant just like me. It's a crazy time.
Crazy time to be pregnant.
How do you explain what can't be hidden? I mean, this coronavirus stuff is crazy. How do you explain this to your kids when they're asking questions? I'm just going to use that as a jump off point. We'll see where we land with this thing.
Absolutely. Before we get to the specific questions that they might be asking and how to specifically answer them, I think it's really important that we talk about the tone of which we're carrying as parents, because one of the things that I say often is that you can sum up all of parenting research into one primary conclusion, and that is that our kids become who we are. So in other words, if we're carrying around a lot of fear around what's happening, if we're, for instance, living in the 24-hour breaking news cycle, and we're reading you're not reading news about all the recovered cases. You're reading news about all the deaths. You're reading news about all of the negative. And that's going to feed your fear. It's going to continue to feed your fear. And if we're fearful as parents, that will get translated to our kids. And so we need to keep in mind how we are approaching our kids in these conversations. They're going to pick that. They're going to pick that atmosphere up from us, and it's going to taint what you say. You can try to. It's like, you can say everything's going to be fine, but if you're doing it with a trembling voice, it's not. They're not going to hear the words. They're going to hear the trembling voice. So it really comes down to us taking care of ourselves as parents. That's the beginning of this. We have to figure out how to take care of ourselves as parents. Self-care is really important. And I think the place to start is, what are you reading online? Are you limiting the news? Are you limiting what you're doing? And are you seeing things that feed your faith? Or are you reading things and watching things that feed your fear? Because we have to pay attention to that, so that our faith, we're walking in faith, not in fear through this, because our kids are going to pick up on that.
That's important. I'm glad you guys are giving some specifics, because I know that you're experts in like children, but you also are experts in emotion. And every single day, this thing is changing, and every single day it seems to be getting worse. So do you have any other tips on, first, how we potentially as parents can come to terms with our own emotion and be in a steady place to talk to kids?
Yeah, and I think that's a part, like Joy, that's it. That's where it starts, because so many of us, like when crisis hits, and that's what this is, and we have to be okay to even just say, like, we are in a crisis. That's like, a lot of us have never lived through a true crisis, especially on this scale, where it's affecting so many. It's affecting all of us.
Everything.
In fact, it's affecting the whole world. And we have never lived through this, but it is important to recognize this is not the first time this has happened. This is not new. It's just new to us. And so we can look back through history and see how people have dealt with it. We can also start to address it for our own selves. Okay, so this is the first time I've ever been put in this circumstance. It's new. It's novel. It's novel for a reason, because this is new to all of us, and that we have to give ourselves grace then, because I've never been in this circumstance before. I've never been pregnant during a pandemic or homeschooling kids all of a sudden and working from home. None of us have done this before. And so, but we have to, when crisis hits, we go into fight or flight mode, and we go into survival. We're a few weeks into this now. So we're starting to feel the effects of a few weeks of just surviving, where we've just been in fight or flight.
Yes.
And it's super normal, where now we're starting to feel maybe depression, grief, like certain things that didn't creep up at first because we were stockpiling our kitchens, and we're literally in survival. We're not as much in survival now. Now it's time to sort of evaluate, how am I? And that's real. Like, literally, how am I doing? So if you are a single person, finding a safe person to talk to about this is super important. If you're married, and you're quarantined with your spouse, you have a go-to. If you can call, if it's a friend, if it's a parent, and it's checking in with them, like, really, how are we doing? Because once we have to really start to put names to, which, I mean, we wrote it in a kid's book for kids, but it's just as important for us as adults. What are we feeling? Because right now we could be fine. I could be totally acting fine. And tonight, all the wheels could come off, and all of a sudden it comes out in tears and fear and confusion. And that's okay.
And it has.
And it has.
And CJ, that might even be you at some point.
At work, at home, everywhere.
What?
I said it happens for me at home and at work. I'm with this one at work. My wife at home. We're talking to Josh and Christi, who have just really useful insight on helping us to be the very best parents that we can be in the midst of all this. They have a book called What Am I Feeling? You can get that on Amazon. How much of this is, I hear you unpack, like, putting your own emotions, putting names on them, and also being very aware of the tone that you're setting with your own kids. When it comes to how transparent you are with your little ones, like I got a 5-year-old. I'd be curious to know just how much or just how little do you want to keep them guarded, that you unpack, because I know for myself as a parent, I found it surprising on more than one occasion to figure out just the capacity of what they have the ability to understand.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear you guys speak into that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I actually say as it relates to this is similar to the news as an adult. For example, I try to limit myself to about 15 to no more than 30 minutes a day of the news. And I use a particular app that doesn't give bias and opinion and all that. I stick to the facts and try to stay to the facts as much as possible. And then I leave it. Because if I get way too much information, I'm feeding my fear, and I walk away with thoughts that didn't need to be planted in my head. And I equate that to what we need to do with our kids too. Think of you as a parent as the news media. Think of you as a parent as what you're giving to your kids. So in other words, if your child, your 5-year-old, we have a 5-year-old daughter, if she's asking a question, and she's asked tons lately, as you said, they're picking up things that I was like, wow, I didn't even realize they were picking up. We want to be age appropriate in what we're giving them and the information we're giving them. And the thing that I usually do, my general rule is to ask a question with a question. So rather than answering the question outright, because usually what's happening is we tend to give more information to our kids than they're even asking. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're planting more seeds in their brain that can lead to more fear and lead to more questions and more uncertainty, when we didn't need to do that to begin with.
Can you give us an example of one of those, like a question she asked and like what you would say back?
Yeah, great question. So an example would be, just this happened yesterday or the day before. We have just being honest, there's kids running around our neighborhood still. And, we're not letting our kids run around the neighborhood. We're not exposing our kids. We're staying in, we're staying home. And the question was, why can't I go outside? I want to go outside and play with my friends. Why can't I go outside? And up to this point, we haven't addressed it. Up to this point, we've just kind of said, we just kind of kept them. But now it's at a point where it's just blatantly obvious there's kids out front and they're all playing. And we're like, okay, so how do we manage this? And so I just asked her, what is it that you would like to do? And, she said, I want to go out and play and that type of thing. And so I'm getting to the bottom of where this is and how can I answer it in a way that's going to be respectful, but also sets boundaries. Another one is, our son will, are we going to get the coronavirus?
That's a huge question. Everybody has that question.
Are we going to get it? What makes you ask that question? What makes you think of that question? I'm afraid of what is it that you're most afraid of happening? What is it that you're most afraid? Answering a question with a question helps continue to get to the underlying motivation behind why they're asking that question to begin with. Mm-hmm. Instead of just lecturing them on, the chances of you getting it are, less than
Here's the
2%.
percentage
Yeah, less than
chances
2% because you're under the age of 19. But mommy,
They don't want a percentage.
It's like, mommy's pregnant, so we really got to protect her because, if she gets sick, that could be really dangerous to mommy. And,
That would scare them.
yeah, like
Totally.
we don't need to go into all that. So we say, you know what? No, we're doing everything we can according to the rules to make sure we're not going to get sick, to make sure we're protecting mommy and everything. And so you're fine. Like, we're all fine. We're in the house, we're doing right. So you see that through the Gospels. Jesus usually answered people's questions with questions. Rarely did he ever actually answer the question. He's getting to the heart of the matter. And I think it's very important that we just get to the heart of the matter, because what our kids are really saying is, am I safe? Am I safe? That's the question they're really asking.
But before we got too removed from just something you said a second ago, since we're streaming this live, people are asking questions in real time. And I just want to zero in on Elaine. She was vibing on the thing you said about not over consuming the news. And she wanted to know what app it is that you use to get your information.
Great
just
question.
Out of curiosity.
I use Reuters. So the Reuters app has a video thing in there, and you can pick how much you want. And they do like 1 to 3 minute like clips of highlights of what's happening in the world. And you can just watch that. And I usually just watch 15 minutes or 30 minutes and I'll get an update, and you can click which one you want to see. You just get it. And then I'm usually off, but CNN and Fox News and all that, there's so much bias and division and fear that's I can't live there. I personally cannot live there. Some people can. I can't do it. It's not good for my soul.
And would your recommendation be not to have the news on the TV, because then you have no control over what may come out? Do you recommend to look at it on your phone?
Totally. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
We usually don't keep the TV on at all in our background of our house. So just I think it's too much. I drive down the road not listening to much music. Like, there's times I'll just drive down the road when I'm in my car. This was when I used to drive. And
remember those days.
And there's times I just drive in silence. I get overwhelmed. So I don't like having the background noise, but that's just me.
And I think for me, I'm pregnant, and there is a fear in me that it is right there ready to creep up if I even I am not reading the news right now. And I think evaluate where you're at. Like, are you able to? And it's not like I'm not aware of what's going on. I literally ask my husband, I'm like, tell me what I need to know. And he'll
that's it.
The updates of this and where we're at in Tennessee and, as a country. And it's not that I don't want to have my head in the sand. I want to know what's going on, but he can tell me in a way, it's the same way we can talk to our kids, in a way that's like, he knows what's appropriate for me to hear and what's not necessary for me to know right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that has, truly that's changed the tone of our home. It's changed because in the beginning, you're just consuming everything because we're all so confused and it's
new.
Usually, on the daily. And now we're in a season where we're realizing this is going to stick around for a little while. There will be daily changes, but we do not need to be stuck to the 24-hour news cycle.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, are you guys saying that you should wait until your kids ask you questions, or are you saying that you should have some like family meetings and say, we're going to be in the house for another month, and are you guys proactive, or do you just wait?
Great question. Both. The answer to that's both. And it depends on the age of your kids. Our kids are 5 and 7. When school started getting out, the questions were up. Why are we out of school? You have to have that conversation. Now, how much information you give is up to, as everything, as Christi just said, everything's going on, and every day there was something new coming out about what was going to happen and what was, what we were going to be. And so we're not updating our kids as all that's happening because it's so confusing. But once things started to settle, then we started to be more proactive, and we've created family rhythms in our home, and we've already had weekly rhythms. But now that our kids are home all the time, that we're home all the time, one of the things that we do is we sit down on Sunday evening and we just create rhythms. And so every night we're having dinner together. Friday night, this is just an example, but Friday night, we have to start, the week starts with Sabbath. You see that in scripture. It starts with Sabbath. We have to have a day of rest. And if there's ever been a time to start with Sabbath, now's the time to start implementing Sabbath. So we do a Friday night Shabbat dinner, which is the Jewish custom to have a dinner. We start Friday night, we do the dinner, and then we lead into Saturday to have our family Sabbath day, because even when church was in session, going to church on a Sunday just is not restful. And so we use Saturday as a day. So Sunday is our ramp up day, meaning we're cleaning the bed sheets, we're cleaning the house, and we all as a family are in on that. And by Sunday night, we have a family meeting in our house, and we've gotten a lot more structured with it and a lot more routine since everybody's been home, because we found that we need the routine. Rhythm and routine will serve your family well. They will serve your kids well.
They serve us well.
Yeah, they serve us well, and they help with our mental health. They help with our kids' mental health. And then your kids aren't wondering, like, what's next day going to hold, and what's this going to hold? And there's already a schedule in place. They know that they're going to do homeschool from 9 to 11. They know that they're going to get TV time during this time because mom and dad are doing interviews. They know that they're going to do, they know what's coming, and it just helps everybody as a family. And then we'll use that time to update them on. Actually, just last night, we had at dinner time, we talked about coronavirus, because we had to talk about boundaries we have to set with people in our neighborhood and what that means and looks like. And, we had to talk about, the big thing we're doing at 5 and 7 right now is teaching them to eat with utensils, psychologically, we're trying to teach them to keep their hands away from their face and not licking their fingers and doing all that. So we're having those conversations too, and using it as a time to, teach proper hygiene, washing hands, and why it's important, and that type of thing. We're not doing it in a fearful way. We're doing it in a way that says, hey, this is going to serve you well even when this is over, because this is going to end, and you just want to stay healthy. We all want to stay healthy, so this is going to serve you well. So we're couching it in a way that says, hey, listen, we have a plan as a family. We know where we're going as a family, and we got this. And if you can sit down and you can create those rhythms, your kids will begin to feel like, hey, we're living with purpose. We're living with intention. There's routine, and I feel safe in this rhythm and routine.
This is all good stuff. I'm afraid we have to wrap it up. I wish we didn't, because this is all really good stuff. If you're joining in the middle of this, I would invite you to not be lazy. Just hit rewind. Watch it from the beginning. It's really good. It ain't like you got nothing else to do. You're just sitting at home. But Josh and Christi, again, I want to thank them for their time, and then also again talk about the book, which is really great. I got a copy at home. It's a children's book. It's called What Am I Feeling? You can find that on Amazon.
Oh, there it is.
Right there.
I think that book's even good for adults, because there's a chart in the back, right, that helps you to identify. You could just point to it. And even my husband and I are sometimes like, now I need you to identify what exact emotion you're feeling. It's good for adults too. There it is.
Where are you at? Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, literally, we all need it.
They're just a great resource, and they're becoming fast friends of the CJ and Joy Show and WayFM. Final thoughts. If there's a parent and you could just tell them one thing as they navigate through this whole coronavirus thing inside the walls of their own home, just one thing only. Actually, you get a male and a female perspective. I'd love to hear Christi and Josh take us home with this one.
Yeah. I'd say to all the mamas listening, grace upon grace for yourself, for your kids, for your husband. We're seeing a lot of problem in marriage for people who aren't used to being home together all the time. Your spouse did not create the coronavirus. They did not choose to be quarantined full time with you. It is not their fault. And to treat them and your kids like the little boy and the little girl that still live inside. There's probably still a lot of fear and insecurity, and nobody really knows how to handle something new like this. And so to treat one another with that amount of grace, and yourself, because you're going to feel a lot of things come up that make you feel insecure and really small, like a child does. And if we can talk to one another that way, if we can see one another that way, it'll change the environment of our home.
And I would say to dads and even to moms, become a student of your kid during this time. Become a student of each of your kids individually. Find out what they love. If they play video games and you've never entered into playing video games with them, spend time playing video games. I talk a lot about technology and screen time and the influence on our brains, or the negative influence. But man, there's an opportunity here to use it for good and get into your kids' worlds. If they want to play Legos or Thomas the Train, whatever it is they're into, get on the floor, spend time with them, put your phone away, and enter into their world and use this time. Because if so often we have heard that time and not having enough time and being too busy has been an issue for families.
Yes.
If that is still your issue right now, time is not your problem. And so we would love to help serve you guys in any way that we can. You can check us out at famousathome.com. Like we would love to help you use this time to be incredibly intentional. I would just say become students of your kiddos, because that's what wins their heart, because kids spell love Time.
That is so good. And I mean, this is going to end. We're not going to have this season forever, and that's a positive, but you're saying don't waste it. So thank you for leaving us with that. That is so good.
We appreciate you guys
for having us.
Yes, thank you very, very much. There's other material that we've actually talked to them about. We'll make sure we get a link to that in the comments section after a while. But thanks again, guys. Blessings to you. And we'll be praying for a safe delivery for you as well, Christi.
Yes, Christi, we're hanging in there together.
Boy, girl, I'll be praying for you. We're in this together.
Thank you so much. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.